First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Everyone, welcome to Fox 12 Now. Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler. We're here in the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, and we cover a wide range of topics here on the show. We get to have some conversations talking about a wide variety of things on top of that. And so that's what we're doing here today, a first of its kind new thing coming from Portland State University. This is the Oregon Microplastics Analytical Research Center. We're going to talk all about that, what that means, and the important work that they're going to be doing there. And to do so, joining us right now, we have the director, Elise Granek. And Elise, thank you very much, for joining us here today. I really appreciate your time to talk about this. And this is an exciting development. And I think for everybody out there, if we could start off just saying, what led up to this? How this whole idea really began?
Yeah, thanks for covering this and for having me. So we have been doing research on microplastics in the environment for almost 10 years. We started out trying to establish a baseline, trying to understand how much microplastic was in our ocean and our ocean animals, because there was research coming out from other parts of the world and other parts of the country finding microplastics on beaches and ocean water and in bivalves, filter feeding animals on the shore. And because our coastal populations are pretty small, we thought that maybe, it would be less of an issue here in Oregon. And so we did some research, and we actually found that there were measurable and consistent amounts of microplastics across the species we were looking at. We've expanded that, and we've looked at other species, fish species, lamprey and pink shrimp and black rockfish and lingcod, that sort of thing. And we found microplastics in their tissue as well. But one of the limitations in all of our studies has been that we can look under the microscope and try to identify the bits that we think are microplastics, but we need to validate that and make sure that what we're seeing is actually plastic and not other kinds of materials. And there are not that many labs across the country that have the capacity to do that. And so we would partner with other labs and send off samples. We'd have to wait a long time to get our results back from their instrumentation to validate that what we were seeing was microplastics or wasn't microplastics. And so we decided to try to seek some funding to set up a center here in Oregon where we could do that work. And so that's kind of how we came to where we are, where we now have a center here that can serve the region in the Pacific Northwest.
That's great. So being able to get those results, probably, I'm assuming that would mean a lot faster, a lot more accurate, and being right here in the middle of it, I would imagine that really helps out when it comes to the scientific side of it.
Yes.
So when we're talking about microplastics, just to give everybody a little bit more context on that, where, generally speaking, are the microplastics coming from? Is it from here, from the Northwest, pollution sources, or floating in from somewhere else?
Yeah, so we actually, our current understanding is that a lot of it is coming from land-based activities. Some, of course, does come from the ocean. So ships that dump plastic waste overboard that can break down because of weathering from the wind and the salt and the UV. And sometimes fishing gear gets lost and that can break down. But our current understanding is that the vast majority is actually coming from land. We know that there's quite high concentrations that are released from washing machines in the gray water that leaves our houses and goes to wastewater treatment plants. And even when these wastewater treatment plants have very high efficiency, just the sheer volume of microplastics, microfibers that are entering these systems means that even if we only have 1% leaving them and going into rivers and oceans, that's still a very high number. It's in the order of billions per year, or hundreds of billions per year just from the Portland metro area. We also are doing some research, and we're finding that dryer vents are also a pretty big source of, and maybe a comparable source of microfibers, so things that are leaving our dryer vents from our clothes washing and drying and going into the air. Those then may get redeposited onto the land and washed into storm drains and rivers and that sort of thing. Another major source of microplastics, and I should mention that fibers are the thing we see most commonly when we look at the tissue of marine animals. So generally, when we look at their tissue and we break it down and then quantify the plastics in the tissue, that between 85 and 95% of those plastics are fibrous materials, so much of it may be coming from laundering. We do know that tire wear particles are also something that we see commonly in rivers when we take water samples in rivers across the state of Oregon. And so, when we drive our cars, that most all of us have, the little bits of tire pieces break off, and little bits of road wear can break off over time. And when we have rainfall events, those particles get washed into our waterways, and then can get carried downstream. And so that is something that we see in our sampling, both when we've sampled in along the I-5 corridor in rivers, in the expanding beyond the I-5 corridor, and also in some of our sampling on the coast. We've sampled some stormwater, and we've sampled some outfall pipes that drain directly to the beaches, and tire wear particles are one of those things that we're seeing.
Wow. So, so really getting an understanding of where all of this is coming from. Now, once you understand and have more testing, I suppose, to find out more of that, are there then things that you can figure out to maybe prevent some of those microplastics from making it into the waterways?
Yes. So exactly. So that's part of why this center is so important. Is some of the instrumentation we have is to try to it has that has the capacity to identify what kinds of plastics we're seeing, and that can help us with source identification. So it can help us identify whether it's a tire wear particle, whether it's a PVC particle that's broken off and looks fibrous, for example, whether it's polyethylene or polypropylene, something that's from clothes. And so once we can identify the sources, then it allows us to start moving towards solutions. And so some of the work we're doing in the lab actually is looking at some solutions at the coast. So we actually have some projects going on testing out washing machine filters and dryer vent filters to see how much they're trapping. And when they're not present, how much is likely leaving these residences. Or we're also working with hotels, how much is leaving those hotels without when there's no filtration versus with filtration. So we have some comparative studies. We also have a study right now looking at storm drain filters, and how much is might be trapped with some sort of filtration system in storm drain filters that would prevent microplastics, at least in coastal areas, from going directly into the ocean. So yes, there's some organizations and engineers working on solutions to some of these issues, but first understanding what the major sources are and how much they're contributing is helpful as a helpful piece of that process.
Wow. So that's incredibly valuable. Just to give everybody that context too. And obviously this is bad for our ecosystem, but could you maybe give us a few reasons why this is such a major concern for these microplastics getting into the waterways and then into, unfortunately, the animals and sea life?
Yeah, so a couple things. So if we look at just the health of the animals, there have been a large number of studies that have looked at exposure of organisms to microplastics and microfibers, and we do see that they can cause negative health outcomes for these organisms. So sometimes the pieces of plastic get stuck in their gut. In even these small pieces. So you've probably seen pictures of microplastics stuck in the gut of a seabird, and those are big plastics. We're talking about very small plastics, and yet if they ingest enough of these small plastics, it can still make them feel full when they haven't taken in things that have nutritional value. So it can lead to effects on growth. It can lead to effects on reproduction. We know that some of these plastic particles are sharp, and they can cause internal damage in their guts, and inflammation inside of their bodies. And so we have studies where we've actually tested them with exposure, tested animals with exposure, so we know about these outcomes. There are also some studies emerging that not only are these plastics in our food, and so we might be ingesting them, but a number of studies have come out in the last 5 years finding microplastics in different parts of human bodies, including in like the placenta, in breast milk, in lung tissue, in heart tissue. And although we're very early in the research on human health effects, we do see that there are some correlations between microplastics concentrations in certain tissues of the body and negative health outcomes related to that part of the body. For example, there's a study that came out about a year ago that found that in patients with cardiac disease or cardiovascular disease, the severity of the disease was correlated with the concentration of microplastics. So the more microplastics in the damaged heart tissue, there were higher like levels of negative outcomes. So again, we don't know definitely that it caused it, but we are starting to see these trends of correlation with some health outcomes.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just so incredibly important. I know I keep saying that, but I mean, that really is to figure out some of those correlations and understanding those effects. And so I guess back to the lab itself or to the research center. So what is the timeline for actually getting up and going and being able to do some of this research?
Yeah, so we've been really careful about sort of releasing that we're open until we were ready to be up and running. So we are actually now up and running. So I have a graduate student that was running samples most of last week. And so we are actually available to take in samples. We have some collaborations where collaborators send us samples and, they pay a fee for us to buy the materials to run those samples, that sort of thing. But we're really looking to collaborate with like organizations, with other researchers, with governmental agencies that are needing to have information about, microplastics in water and sediment and that sort of thing, and organisms. So we are open for business now, and we're really excited to work with other researchers and agencies to collaborate.
Well, that's fantastic. And again, really great to have this here in the Northwest to be able to tackle some of these issues and try to, get to the bottom of different ways that we can prevent some of these microplastics. And it all starts, it sounds like, with this research of getting a better understanding of what's going on. Anything else that you think is important just for the general public to know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing I just like to mention is that this center we were able to buy the instrumentation for the center and set up and open the center because of federal dollars. There was, federal recognition that understanding better microplastics incidents in the environment and sources is really important. And so federal dollars were put into allowing us to buy the instrumentation. And so I just want to call out the importance of federal resources to support science.
So important. Well, thank you very much for being here with us and just sharing, a little bit of an understanding now for everybody on the work that you're doing there and how important that is. And congratulations on the research center, and great to have that here in the Northwest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And for everybody watching, again, this is Fox 12 Now, and these are the longer conversations that we get to have, where we get to dig in a little bit deeper about important things like this research center and getting able to find out more about it. So thanks for being here. Feel free to share these segments as well, and you can watch on the Fox 12 Oregon app or the website. Maybe you're watching on YouTube, wherever you're finding us. Thanks for doing that, and we will talk to you soon with more Fox 12 Now.